Nothing says eternal love like proposing in a place where absolutely no one asked to witness your emotional collapse. Somehow, people keep turning public spaces into hostage situations with roses. And trust me, this is only the warm-up. 1. Announcing love with the confidence of a man who has never considered consequences, a guy climbed onto the center fountain of a packed mall, slipped on the wet tile mid-speech, and accidentally hurled his ring box directly into a toddler's snack cup. The toddler assumed this was a bartering ritual and fled at full speed, clutching the ring like stolen treasure, while the would-be groom scrambled after him like a panicked cartoon villain. The intended fiancé stood frozen as an audience formed, phones raised, documenting the spectacle the way citizens document meteors, fascinated but unwilling to intervene. Security finally retrieved the sticky yogurt-covered ring, but by then, the mood had evaporated like discount perfume. Nothing says eternal devotion quite like opening a proposal with a head injury, a screaming child, and a jewelry item that now technically counts as dairy adjacent. 2. A man attempted a grand romantic gesture by stopping an entire subway car, pulling the emergency brake to deliver what he called a love monologue with stakes, as though romance thrives on mass transit inconvenience. The passengers did not applaud this artistic vision. They groaned like they were trapped inside a failed improv class, which, to be fair, they now were. The proposal began, but the delayed train meant his speech was drowned out by the conductor's furious announcements echoing through the speakers with the energy of a parent counting down from 3. Meanwhile, transit police paced outside the stalled car ready to escort this modern-day Shakespeare off stage. The partner, mortified and visibly calculating the legal consequences of continuing this relationship, muttered a half-hearted acceptance solely to end the incident. It's rare for an engagement to begin with collective public resentment, but impressive in a deeply misguided way. 3. A street performer paused his juggling routine in a crowded plaza to pivot dramatically into a proposal, except he forgot to stop juggling before kneeling. His plan involved a smooth transition from flaming torches to heartfelt speech, but gravity and common sense vetoed the idea immediately. As he crouched down, one torch veered off course, narrowly missing a tourist's overpriced souvenir hat and landing near someone's stroller like a rejected audition for a disaster movie. Panic erupted while the performer tried to recover both the torch and his dignity, and his partner stood there processing the fact that they were being asked to say yes next to a smoldering reminder of poor planning. Eventually, he extinguished the torch with a puddle and resumed the speech, but nothing quite restores romance after an accidental attempt to warm the crowd by setting them on fire. 4. A man hired a flash mob to propose, which is already reckless, but scheduled it for a busy grocery store at peak rush hour, ensuring maximum chaos and minimum refrigeration for everyone's perishables. Shoppers froze between aisles as strangers burst into choreographed dancing around bottles of laundry detergent, blocking anyone trying to reach the bread. The partner being proposed to look like someone who had wandered into a cult recruitment ceremony by accident, especially when the lead dancer spun into an aisle display, sending soup cans rolling across the floor like metallic tumbleweeds of regret. A confused elderly shopper briefly assumed this was a robbery and tried to call for help over the store's sample booth. By the time the kneeling moment arrived, the partner whispered an embarrassed yes simply to get the dancers to stop. Nothing rekindles love like knowing your proposal prevented an entire community from buying yogurt. 5. A well-meaning romantic chose halftime at a minor league basketball game, believing the shared energy of dozens of mildly interested spectators would heighten the emotional impact. Unfortunately, the team mascot, a giant anthropomorphic bird, was placed in charge of handing over the ring. Naturally, the mascot tripped, the ring flew, and the crowd watched it disappear beneath the bleachers as if the floor had swallowed it out of self-preservation. Several fans dove heroically after it, not out of support, but out of sheer commitment to chaos. Meanwhile, the would-be bride stood center court, while the scoreboard continued displaying ads for discounted nachos, creating a backdrop of culinary mediocrity for a moment intended to symbolize romance. They did find the ring eventually, but nothing says lifelong memory quite like having it retrieved by a teenager holding a corn dog. 6. A rooftop restaurant planned a perfect Valentine's ambiance until a man decided to outdo the decor by hiring a drone to deliver his proposal ring. The drone, however, had opinions about the wind and immediately veered off course, circling other diners like a confused mechanical hummingbird searching for emotional fulfillment. One gust pushed it directly into a waiter's tray, launching cocktails across the terrace and creating a splash zone that no one had consented to. The ring survived but landed in someone's soup with the melodramatic plunk of a sad submarine. The partner stared at the soggy ring, then at the man responsible for unleashing an airborne hazard onto unsuspecting patrons. Romance thrives on symbolism, but it's difficult to convey eternal devotion when your entire engagement depends on retrieving jewelry from clam chowder. 7. A guy attempted a romantic lakeside proposal by arranging rose petals spelling "Marry Me" across a picturesque dock, forgetting that docks move and wind exists. As the couple approached, the petals drifted, scrambled, and eventually rearranged themselves into something resembling an accidental ransom message. Before he could salvage the scene, a sudden wave splashed over the edge, sweeping half the letters into the lake and leaving behind a cryptic MYE, which could have been a proposal, a confession, or a typo. As he kneeled, a duck waddled directly across the remaining petals, quacking loudly enough to overshadow his heartfelt speech. The partner tried not to laugh, but when the duck returned to nibble the ring box, the thin barrier between romance and absurd nature documentary simply evaporated. Nothing complements a life-changing moment like poultry interference. 8. A man proposed in a quiet library under the delusion that whispering vows in the language of hushed chaos would be meaningful instead of deeply inconvenient. When he kneeled, the ring box snapped open louder than every book drop combined, startling a researcher into knocking over an entire stack of materials that hit the floor like thunder issued by academia itself. The librarian on duty stormed over with the solemn authority of someone who has ended louder rebellions, and the couple attempted to continue the proposal in a whisper so strained it sounded like an ASMR video recorded during a hostage negotiation. Patrons stared with the resigned confusion of people just trying to finish their work without becoming unwilling extras in a romantic spectacle. The partner accepted, but the librarian's death glare remained the most memorable part of the event. 9. An ambitious romantic decided to propose in a petting zoo, presumably hoping goats would enhance the ambiance. Instead, one particularly assertive goat interpreted the kneeling posture as an invitation to charge. The proposal speech began, was immediately interrupted by hoofbeats, and concluded with the groom-to-be tumbling backward into a pile of straw as the goat snatched the velvet ring bag and trotted triumphantly across the enclosure like it had just won a scavenger hunt. Children applauded, adults took pictures, and the partner contemplated whether this event counted as a metaphor they should not ignore. The staff eventually recovered the ring, though the bag was definitely beyond repair. No lifetime promise sparkles quite like one introduced by livestock hostility. 10. A man hired a skywriter to display the proposal message, thinking nothing says subtle affection like exhaust burns across the firmament. Unfortunately, he trusted a bargain rate operation whose plane sputtered mid-sentence, leaving a smoky declaration that read, "Will yo MRE?" which looked less like a question and more like the world's saddest CAPTCHA. Spectators debated its meaning while the partner stared upward, trying to interpret whether they were being asked to marry someone or join a witness protection program. By the time the plane came back for a second pass, the wind had already smeared the message into a shapeless cloud reminiscent of a failed weather experiment. The kneeling man tried to salvage the moment with a speech, but nothing competes with atmospheric disappointment. 11. A performer at a Valentine's Day karaoke event decided to precede his proposal with a heartfelt rendition of a romantic ballad, except he chose a song notoriously outside his vocal range. As he strained through every note like a malfunctioning smoke alarm, patrons tried to be supportive but ultimately resorted to staring at the floor, their discomfort radiating through the room like bad Wi-Fi. When he finished, he dramatically pointed to his partner, tripped over the microphone cable, and nearly took down the speaker stand with him. The proposal that followed had to compete with the remaining feedback hum from the sound system, which created a tone more suited to paranormal investigation than romance. His partner's acceptance looked like someone attempting to defuse a social bomb. 12. A man decided to propose in a botanical garden's butterfly conservatory, assuming delicate insects would add whimsy instead of unpredictability. The moment he opened the ring box, a butterfly promptly landed inside it, fluttering against the velvet like it was auditioning for a nature documentary titled Sabotage Insect Edition. When he kneeled, another butterfly landed directly on his nose and remained there stubbornly, turning his emotional declaration into something resembling a children's puppet show. A few spectators snapped photos, confident they were witnessing peak absurdity, until a third butterfly drifted directly into his open mouth mid-sentence. The partner laughed so uncontrollably that the romantic tone disappeared entirely, replaced with the ambiance of two people trying to survive whimsical wildlife. 13. A proposal performed at a busy ice rink began with the groom-to-be skating confidently toward center ice holding a bouquet shaped like a heart, only to discover that physics does not negotiate with romance. He attempted to kneel while still gliding, which sent him slipping uncontrollably into a spin that resembled a malfunctioning Roomba with emotions. The bouquet flew from his hands, scattering red petals across the ice like symbolic debris from a telenovela. The partner trying to skate toward him also lost balance, and the two collided gently in a scene that resembled a slow-motion curling event featuring human participants. The rink audience applauded purely out of second-hand embarrassment management rather than joy. True love may conquer many things, but slippery surfaces clearly aren't one of them. 14. A man attempted a dramatic proposal during a Valentine's Day river cruise by arranging for the boat's captain to make a special announcement. The problem was that the captain's microphone cut in and out like a haunted drive-through speaker, turning the heartfelt message into a mangled sequence of syllables that sounded vaguely extraterrestrial. Passengers stared upward as though awaiting translation from mission control. Meanwhile, the proposer attempted to kneel, but the boat hit a small wake, sending him wobbling like a mannequin with poorly installed joints. He caught himself on a decorative railing which immediately detached from its mount, alerting everyone that romance had now become an unplanned renovation project. The partner accepted while steadying him like a newborn giraffe. 15. A Valentine's Day. Street fair proposal went sideways the instant the hired violinist realized they were performing next to a chili cook-off tent, where the competing noise levels resembled a musical duel between elegance and digestive danger. As the proposer kneeled, a nearby contestant struck a cowbell with the intensity of someone announcing the end of civilization, drowning out what should have been poetic declarations. Then a gust of wind blew through, scattering paper-tasting cups and temporarily engulfing the couple in a blizzard of promotional flyers shaped like peppers. The partner laughed nervously, torn between admiration and confusion, while the violinist tried to continue playing with the determined despair of someone who knows art is powerless against barbecue culture. 16. A proposal at a wildlife park spiraled quickly when a man chose the lion enclosure as his romantic backdrop, apparently believing that nothing communicates lifelong devotion like being within pounce range of apex predators. He kneeled near the fence just as one lion decided to roar directly behind him, with the force of a mythological warning, causing him to throw the ring upward in a reflexive flail that would make any jeweler cry. The ring disappeared into the grass while the partner debated whether rescuing it was worth becoming a footnote in a cautionary tour guide speech. Visitors stared, unsure whether the moment symbolized courage, poor planning, or a documentary about natural selection making editorial comments. Rangers eventually retrieved the ring with a long pole, giving the couple a proposal story best described as romance, interrupted by a creature who clearly disapproved of showy public gestures. 17. One couple's Valentine's Day. Hot air balloon proposal transformed into an unexpected physics demonstration the moment the pilot reminded everyone that balloons cannot pause mid-air for dramatic timing. The proposer still insisted on kneeling, which resulted in the basket tilting just enough to send a champagne bottle rolling toward the pilot's feet like a bubbly harbinger of disaster. Passengers clung to the basket edges while the wind pushed them sideways, turning the entire proposal into what looked like a slow, drifting reenactment of mild panic. The partner attempted to listen to the love-struck speech, but was distracted by the pilot muttering urgent instructions about weight distribution. By the time the ring appeared, everyone on board had formed a temporary trauma bond, and the acceptance came out sounding less like romance and more like a plea for stable ground. Nothing elevates a relationship quite like the sky reluctantly participating in your bad decisions. 18. A proposal in a crowded movie theater began with a man bribing the staff to play a custom video before the film, assuming strangers would appreciate being emotionally hijacked before the previews even ended. The lights dimmed, the screen lit up, and the man's face appeared larger than a small moon, delivering a monologue about destiny while the audience collectively wondered if they were being recruited for a cult. When the video instructed the partner to look under your seat, the poor woman had to awkwardly fish around in the dark while popcorn crumbs rained down. The ring box was finally located, but immediately slipped from her hand, bouncing 2 rows forward and landing in the lap of a teenager who held it like contraband. The partner got the ring back eventually, but nothing quite restores cinematic magic after forcing a theater full of strangers into your romantic subplot. 19. A man decided that the most meaningful place to propose was on a Valentine's Day parade float, despite having no affiliation with the parade and no understanding of how floats move. He hopped onto a floral-themed float mid-route, nearly tripping over a giant cardboard heart, and launched into a speech while volunteers shouted reminders that this was not, in fact, part of the program. The partner walking along the sidewalk had to jog beside the moving float to hear him, creating a scene that looked more like a political chase than a proposal. Spectators cheered simply because they assumed anything happening on a float must be intentional, even when it clearly wasn't. The partner accepted, breathless and confused, moments before security escorted the groom-to-be off the moving vehicle like a man who had mistakenly joined a marching band without signing up. 20. A beachside Valentine's proposal lost its romantic momentum the moment a gust of wind blew the decorative rose petals into the air, transforming the setup into a chaotic cloud of red confetti drifting toward unsuspecting sunbathers. As the proposer kneeled, a rogue petal lodged itself in his mouth mid-sentence, creating a dramatic sputtering effect that did not enhance the atmosphere. Meanwhile, a dog belonging to a nearby family interpreted the kneeling posture as a personal invitation and sprinted over, grabbing the ring box between its teeth with the confidence of an animal, convinced it had found the world's fanciest chew toy. The partner had to coax the dog into releasing the box, while beachgoers offered commentary as though judging an Olympic event. Once the ring was recovered from the slightly slobber-enhanced container, the moment proceeded, though the dog clearly believed it was the rightful star. 21. A man attempted a romantic ice sculpture-themed proposal, commissioning a giant frozen heart to serve as the centerpiece of his big moment, apparently unaware that ice has strong opinions about temperature. As he launched into his declaration, a loud crack echoed from inside the sculpture, like a warning from a vengeful glacier. Seconds later, the heart split down the middle and collapsed in two dramatic halves, splashing freezing water onto his shoes and instantly ruining any chance at maintaining dignity. Spectators gasped as though nature itself had rejected the union. The partner tried to hold back laughter while he wiped melting shards off his pants, insisting the symbolism was purely structural and not, as everyone silently feared, metaphoric. They continued the proposal anyway, but it's difficult to take a declaration of eternal commitment seriously when the universe literally shatters your prop mid-sentence. 22. A well-intentioned romantic proposed during a Valentine's Day aquarium event by paying the diver inside the shark tank to hold up a sign reading, "Will you marry me?" The plan seemed foolproof until one particularly uninterested shark swam in front of the sign and refused to move, turning the heartfelt message into a display of large, uninterpretable fish mass. The diver attempted to wave the shark away, which only attracted more sharks, creating a swirling wall of aquatic apathy that completely obscured the message. On the outside of the glass, the proposer tried to gesture toward the tank with the enthusiasm of a parent pointing out a school play performance, while guests watched with the kind of confusion normally reserved for cryptic modern art. Eventually, the sharks dispersed long enough for the partner to see the sign, though the diver appeared to be rethinking every career choice that led to this moment. 23. A Valentine's Day hike proposal went downhill when the proposer decided the perfect moment to declare love was at the edge of a scenic overlook, ignoring the fact that the partner was terrified of heights and already clinging to a railing like it was a life raft. The man kneeled anyway, unaware that nothing says romance like triggering someone's fight-or-flight response. As he opened the ring box, the partner backed up too quickly, tripped over a poorly placed informational plaque about geological formations, and ended up sitting in the dirt while tourists pretended not to watch. The speech continued, though it now resembled someone trying to reassure a panicked deer. Eventually, the partner accepted from ground level, still refusing to stand until they were at least 30 feet away from the cliff. It was an unconventional proposal, but certainly educational for everyone involved in the geology lesson. 24. A man attempted a romantic proposal at a Valentine's Day escape room, believing nothing strengthens a relationship like solving puzzles under time pressure while a speaker system counts down with the urgency of an action movie bomb. He hid the ring inside one of the clue boxes, which would have been clever, except the group solved the puzzle out of order, meaning the partner opened the wrong box and found a plastic skull instead of jewelry. As confusion spread, the man tried to redirect attention, but the game master, listening through the intercom, incorrectly assumed the group needed hints and started feeding them instructions, inadvertently spoiling the remaining clues. The ring eventually emerged, though the proposal had to compete with an alarm signaling the final 5 minutes, creating a soundscape better suited to disaster drills. They escaped the room, but romance barely escaped the planning. 25. A man chose a Valentine's Day concert for his proposal moment by arranging with the band to pause mid-song, hand him a microphone, and let him profess his love in front of thousands of strangers who had paid money to hear literally anything else. The music stopped, the lights shifted, and he launched into a heartfelt declaration that lasted significantly longer than public patience, prompting scattered boos from audience members unaware they were being forced into a community theater production of someone else's feelings. The partner looked both touched and acutely aware of the rising tension, especially when a group of fans shouted for the band to continue as though romance itself were interrupting the show. The acceptance came quickly, motivated less by passion and more by a desire to restore music before the crowd staged a rebellion. 26. A Valentine's Day skating rink proposal reached new heights of awkwardness when the man hired a costumed Cupid to deliver the ring mid-proposal, expecting whimsy and receiving chaos. The Cupid performer, skating backward with misplaced confidence, collided with the rink wall, sending the ring box sailing across the ice like a rogue puck in a championship match. Several children joined the chase, treating it as a spontaneous game while the proposer slid helplessly after them, arms flailing. The partner stood alone in the center, watching this display of love and physics unfold with the expression of someone contemplating every fork in the road that led to this moment. Eventually, the ring was retrieved, though Cupid remained face down on the ice contemplating existence. 27. A rooftop Valentine's Day proposal went sideways when the proposer attempted to time his speech with the fireworks from a nearby festival, forgetting fireworks do not respect personal schedules. As he kneeled, the first explosion erupted directly behind him, startling him into dropping the ring, which skittered across the concrete like it had somewhere better to be. The partner lunged for it while nearby guests debated whether the fireworks were part of the plan or an act of divine commentary. Every time he resumed a sentence, another burst drowned him out, creating a stop-and-start confession that sounded like someone trying to shout poetry during a tactical raid. When the partner finally accepted, it was mostly because the fireworks were coming to an end, and the night needed closure. 28. A man tried to propose at a pet-friendly Valentine's festival, assuming the collective cuteness of dozens of dogs would heighten the romance. What he didn't anticipate was that dogs, as a rule, love two things: running toward kneeling humans and fighting over unfamiliar objects. The moment he kneeled, 3 dogs converged on him like furry missiles, one grabbing the bouquet while another attempted to wrestle the ring box from his hand, possibly under the impression that it contained snacks. The partner attempted to intervene but was quickly outnumbered. Owners shouted apologies, though none made meaningful efforts to stop the canine chaos. The proposal resumed only after the ring was rescued from a particularly enthusiastic pug, who seemed disappointed it wasn't edible. 29. A man attempted a sentimental Valentine's Day city bus proposal, having coordinated with the driver to display "Will you marry me" on the digital route sign. Unfortunately, the bus system automatically cycles through destinations, so during the proposal, the sign alternated between the romantic message and out of service, creating an accidental commentary on the fragility of human relationships. Passengers stared with half curiosity, half resignation, as the proposer knelt in the aisle while the bus hit every pothole in the Tri-County area. At one point, the partner had to grab a pole mid-bump to avoid toppling directly onto him, turning the proposal into an accidental slapstick routine. The acceptance finally came, though the moment was immediately interrupted by a rider asking if the bus was actually out of service or if the sign was just having a moment. And that's our tour of public proposals nobody asked to witness. Drop your vote for the dumbest one, or add your own disasters, because trust me, humanity's got plenty more.